Ford CEO Jim Hackett says the joint venture with Volkswagen will help position the companies to capitalize on autonomous technologies. The CEOs of both companies spoke with Bloomberg's David Westin.
You know, we are in close relationship with some of our Chinese partners, but we are big enough. We have economies of scale. But what is to come to automotive industry is really big efforts, big investments in autonomous, big investment into electric vehicles, and it just makes sense for even for two big companies to share some of the efforts, which will make both companies faster and more efficient.
How does this fit with your restructuring in Europe?
Well, I've explained that it helps the Renaissance. In fact, this idea came in parallel as we were working on the autonomous problem. Last year in November, I was happening to watch one of my favorite football games at halftime, the Ohio State-Michigan game. I picked up the phone and called Herbert and said, as we're working through this technology, you know, it occurs to both of us that there's opportunity to expand the nature of this. And he said, look, you've got to take a look at this MEB architecture, and it's quite humble, but it's really extraordinary engineering. And so it just started to fit together. And because these teams were having these early discussions, it was easy to throw that into the mix and say, try and rationalize that. When we made the first announcements in January, we were right in the middle of that, and you know, we had a lot of work to do. So I'm not worried that here we are in July announcing these two facets of the alliance, because it really is going to be just in time for when we need it.
Interesting. You had time, by the way, in the Ohio State-Michigan game, because we didn't do so well in that game, as I recall.
I'll let you comment on that.
No, I won't comment on that. But we just talked about the timing of all this. Is this fast enough? Because we're watching, particularly in Europe, to some extent China as well, the governments are really pushing forward on emissions-free technology. Will this be in time to really help Volkswagen, for example?
We think we are right in time. We will, when emission really starts to get tough, which is 2021, we will be right at the market with all this new technology, driven by our ventures in China, because we have a high market share in China, about 18%. So only to comply, we need 1.5 million vehicles per year, EV vehicles per year by 25. So we're investing heavily in China. We're using that scale to be very competitive in Europe, adding scale from Ford will make us even more competitive. That will accelerate probably the transition into EV cars, and which will help both companies considerably.
You mentioned the MEB platform that Volkswagen has here. As I understand it, that gives you flexibility in what kind of vehicle actually you'll build on this platform. Initially, is it going to be passenger vehicles? Is it going to be SUVs? Is it going to be utility vehicles? What's it going to be?
Well, it is initially passenger vehicles, but that we're not limited. And I just want to add, you know, Ford intentionally is compliant in Europe and will be in addition with the MEB. So it's just a faster way for us to make this conversion.
What about Latin America? I mean, you have an operation there too, and you were cooperating, as I understand, on some things with some smaller trucks.
Yeah, as I came into the industry 2 years ago, I learned that Ford and VW had a JV in Latin America that actually did very well, I think, and has stopped. And I think the difference this time is the nature of the products that we're working on and the kinds of issues that we're addressing happen to be forward investments. That's the better kind of challenge, because it causes a win-win for both sides. It causes a higher engagement because we're on deadlines to try and meet targets. So I have a little more optimism with this phase of what's been a good relationship between VW and Ford over the years.
Let's talk about the form of the deal, because it's a joint venture. Joint ventures offer certain opportunities. They also offer some challenges as opposed to a total integration. How do you take two fierce competitors in Volkswagen and Ford and have them cooperate some of the time and compete some of the time?
I think it's possible. We have a good track record now. In the old days in Latin America and also in Europe, we shared some plants and technologies a few years ago. The teams come along quite well with each other. I think we share some values. We have a, let's say, quite synchronized view on what's going to happen in our industry over the next years. And we are really complementary now. Ford is very strong here in the United States. We are a relatively small player. We are strong in China and in Europe. In Latin America, I think we are fully complementary. So we can help each other a lot. And we do this partnership on the basis of project by project. And what we decided so far is all very promising, I would say.